quick refresher on 2023 contribution limits. So thanks, John, for sending on this question for our weekly update here this week. Welcome back. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving holiday. We're getting right back in the thick of it already this week with inflation numbers right back in the headlines here today. My name is Brandon Steele, financial advisor with Mainsail Financial Group here in Bellevue. And our goal every Thursday is to bring to you the market news, the data, the trends that we're watching, and hopefully weed out some of the noise along the way. And this week is maybe a good example of that, because there certainly has been a lot going on, but I would say maybe our focus here today is going to be on the most important part of this, which is the inflation data. Before we get to that, just a quick refresher that markets were closed on Thursday for the holiday, and then Friday was also a half day. So we were, had a pretty light, quiet kind of week heading into this week. And then all of a sudden, here we are on Thursday with a lot coming out. We had the OPEC meeting just today. And then maybe most importantly, we had inflation and spending and income come out. So today we had PCE data, PCE index data come out. And the PCE inflation data for this past month was basically flat for the month. But core in PCE, which again strips out the food and energy prices. So oil prices have come down quite a bit over the last, let's say, 2 months or so. And that has impacted the headline data number quite a bit. So if you hear CPI or PCE without the word core in front of it, just keep that in mind. That takes out food and energy. And again, when energy, let's say oil in this example especially, is so volatile and has pulled back quite a bit, it can certainly have a big impact on those numbers in the short run. That's why you hear the Fed always talk about this idea of core inflation. In fact, they've talked lately about this idea of super core inflation. But I think that's maybe more because core inflation has been stickier than expected. So I won't talk about that. But basically, core inflation is really the one to watch. And the core PCE data was up 0.2% for the month, which was right in line with expectations. So if you're following the market, this morning, there wasn't a whole lot of shift, basically, because it wasn't a bad number. It wasn't a good number. Obviously, the kind of general rhetoric going into this inflation data now since the last Fed meeting is that inflation's coming down and the Fed is done. And so any data that goes against that, we could certainly see a reaction. And again, since this one was more neutral, I think we're just kind of seeing a little bit of a muted reaction to that. On top of that, we had personal income data come out. So we are getting very close to year end and holidays. I think I touched on this briefly last time. The holiday season here for 2023 is going to be critical. It's going to be really important to watch what the consumer does and how they spend or don't spend, which might dictate some of the performance we see in the stock market, towards the end of the year and beginning of 2024. So anyways, that's a long way to get to this income data. So income data came out 0.2% increase, which was a little less than expected. And personal spending came out at a 0.2% increase as well, basically the same level. So early data points here. But as we get further into December, we'll have a much better glimpse of how the consumer is shaping up and whether they're spending the typical levels or not. So far, some of the data has kind of suggested that the consumer is being much more conservative this holiday season, to some degree on total spend, but also on what they're spending, maybe a little less on the high-end stuff. They're looking for bargains, that kind of thing. So it's very, very early. I don't want to, say too much in that direction quite yet, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, because the consumer, I think, is going to be a really, really important factor in how the market holds up through the year end and beginning of 2024. So we will be sure to kind of share more of that. I touched on it briefly last week as well. We will certainly share more as we continue through the holiday season. Be sure to tune in next week. We have JOLTS job data coming out on Tuesday. We have ADP employment report on Wednesday, and we have non-farm payrolls on Friday. So we are right back into jobs week, to say the least. But before we break for today, I do want to share a quick refresher on 2023 contribution limits. So thanks, John, for sending on this question for our weekly update here this week. And very, very timely to make sure that, for those who are trying to max out their 401ks, IRAs, HSAs, that you're able to do so here for 2023. So we also have a great resource that kind of breaks down 2023, contribution limits, tax tables, all that stuff in a lot more detail. We also have another one that talks about 2024 limits, but what I want to spend time on today is just a quick refresher of 2023 and some of the more common retirement plans that we see. So for 401ks, a quick reminder that for 2023, the contribution limit is $22,500 in terms of what you can contribute as a participant. Plus, for those age 50 and older, you get an extra $7,500 of catch-up contribution that you're eligible for. So that puts us at a total of $30,000 for those 50 and older. For IRAs, individual retirement accounts outside of company plans, the maximum is $6,500. And again, those age 50 and older also get what's called a catch-up contribution, in this example of $1,000 more. So if you're age 50 or older, you can do up to $7,500 towards a IRA or Roth IRA if you're eligible for 2023. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is HSA, health savings accounts. So HSA contribution limits for individuals. So again, if you're on your own health plan, is $3,850 for 2023. And for families, it is $7,550. So hopefully that's helpful as we get really close to the end of 2023. You are hoping to max out your plans and haven't yet. These are some of the numbers to kind of keep an eye on through the end of the year. And again, 2024 has contribution limits already rolled out as well. So just keep an eye on that. If you do want that resource, we have it available as well. But otherwise, we also have a really great resource for year end that talks about tax brackets and a little more details of income limits and all that stuff too. So hopefully that's helpful as a quick refresher. Thank you so much for tuning in this Thursday, and we'll see you next Thursday to talk all about jobs data. Have a great upcoming weekend. We'll see you next Thursday at 3.